No one remembered seeing the first swan arrive. Not the fisherman who lived on the north dock, nor the widow who boiled her tea at dawn, watching the mist curl over the water like breath from a sleeping god. Yet one morning, a single white feather drifted across the village square, impossibly large, pristine, and still damp with dew. Children chased it. Old men crossed themselves. And by the time the church bell rang, the lake had already begun to change. It started with a sound. A low hum, barely audible, but constant, like metal beneath tension, like breath held too long. Then the mist over the lake thickened. It didn't rise. It settled, curling in slow spirals, dense as wool, hiding the shore from the hills and the hills from the sky. And in the middle of that white silence, the first swan. No one saw it land. No one saw it fly. It was simply there. A perfect figure of ivory, floating still and alone, its neck curved not in grace but in watchfulness, like a sentinel carved from memory. The fisherman claimed he tried to row closer, but the oars refused the water. Not stuck. Not broken. The lake simply pushed back. As though it had grown thick, resistant, like oil or blood. He dipped his hand in, and said it felt warm. Not with heat. But with presence. By dusk, there were 3 swans. By the next sunrise, 7. The birds did not eat. They did not move. They simply floated, equidistant, forming a silent constellation across the surface of the lake. Each facing a different direction. Each casting a reflection that did not match its pose. One villager claimed that in the stillness of dawn, he saw a reflection blink after the bird had turned. The sky grew paler as the water darkened. And the feather in the village square? It turned gray by nightfall. Still soft. Still perfect. But now the color of storm clouds. His name was Elior, though few used it anymore. Most just called him the lantern keeper. He was not a priest, nor a scholar. He had no children. He lived in the half-burned watchtower on the hill above the lake and lit the lantern every evening, even though no ships had come in decades, and no one asked him to. Some said the fire inside the lantern never went out, even during storms. Others claimed it wasn't fire at all, but a memory, bound in oil and flickering through time. Elior was the first to speak aloud what others only whispered. "They are beautiful," he said. He stood at the edge of the lake, eyes unblinking, hands unclenched. The swans, now numbering 13, floated in a circle. The mist around them had begun to spiral, faint but steady, like water circling a drain, or a lock waiting to open. "They aren't birds," the widow hissed. "They're omens. They are here for us," the baker muttered, "but not in the way we want." But Elior stepped forward, 3 paces closer than anyone had dared. The ground beneath him rippled. The reflection of the swans twisted, their necks doubling back, their wings twitching in the water like slow hands. But their bodies above the surface stayed still, serene, almost holy. Elior raised a hand, palm open. "You don't frighten me," he said, "I remember your shape." A hush fell across the lake. The wind stopped. The bell in the tower above stilled its swinging. And then, the 13th swan moved. Not turned. Moved. It glided toward the shore with no ripple, no sound. Its wake was dry, the water pulling back behind it like ink erased from parchment. As it reached the bank, it paused. Its head dipped. Not a bow. An acknowledgement. And in that moment, the water turned black. Not muddy, not shadowed. Black. As iron. Light refused to reflect off it. The sky vanished from its surface. It looked like the lake had been replaced by a pit without bottom, an absence shaped like water. Elior did not flinch. The swan opened its beak, but no sound came out. Instead, Elior listened, and when he turned back to the villagers, his eyes were filled with something ancient. Not fear. Not reverence. Something deeper. "They are not here to take," he said. "They are here to choose." No one knew where the child came from. He appeared the morning after the water turned, sitting barefoot on the weather-worn steps of the old boathouse, his knees drawn to his chest, watching the lake without blinking. His hair was the color of tree ash. His eyes were deep brown, but when the wind moved, they shimmered the same black as the water. He spoke to no one. When asked his name, he tilted his head, then traced something on the wood with a single finger, a spiral, like the mist above the swans. The villagers were uneasy. Children, they could understand. Strangers, they could endure. But a child with no name, that was something else. Elior found him first. He knelt beside the boy and asked only one question. Did they send you? The boy didn't speak, but he nodded once, a slow, deliberate motion that made the reeds behind him bend, though no wind blew. That night, the swans moved again. They realigned into a straight line stretching across the lake, perfectly spaced. One by one, they turned their heads toward the boathouse, 13 still faces reflecting nothing but intention. At the same time, the boy stood, walked down the dock, and placed his hand on the surface of the lake. No ripples. But color began to shift beneath his palm. A bloom of white spread outward, like milk spilled on black glass, and within it, faintly, shapes began to form. Towers. Roots. Antlers. A face with no mouth. The villagers watched from afar. No one dared speak. And then, the boy turned to face them, eyes blank. He spoke his first and only sentence. We are the sky now. Behind him, the water remained black. But every fish that had once lain motionless in the silt now floated upright, eyes wide, mouths closed, staring upward as if listening for something. That night, no stars appeared. Not even the moon. Just a black mirror in the sky, as flat and vast as the lake itself. And the boy. He vanished by dawn. Leaving behind a single white feather resting on the dock, curled like a sleeping ear. The villagers had long known that lakes could deceive. They'd seen fog turn trees into towers, stars into fireflies, and boats into beasts. But now, the lake no longer mirrored the world, it mirrored something else. At first, it was subtle. The swans drifted across the black surface, casting reflections that moved a heartbeat too late. A wing dipped in water, and its reflection rose upward. A blink in reality, and below, the eye remained open. The baker was the first to test it. He stood at the dock's edge and raised his arm. The reflection followed, but the arm bore a wound, deep, spiraling, as if carved by a blade that remembered its path. He screamed and stepped back. His skin was whole. But his shadow wept. After that, none dared approach the lake directly. Not until the mirror child returned. Just before dusk, the boy appeared once more on the steps of the boathouse, dry and silent. This time, he brought something with him. A mirror, cracked across the center, tied to his back with reeds. He placed it face down on the dock. Then he sat beside it, unmoving. The mirror's glass slowly turned dark, not with dust or ash, but with depth. It began to mimic the lake, and the lake, in turn, began to mimic the mirror. Elior watched from the hill. He knew what it meant. The lake no longer reflects us, he said. It reflects who we are becoming. That night, 3 villagers disappeared. All 3 had looked into the lake's surface. All 3 had seen themselves, but older, or wounded, or smiling when they hadn't smiled in years. And the reflections did not vanish when they walked away. They stayed behind, watching. By morning, only 12 swans remained. The 13th had dissolved, its body melted into strands of white mist that rose and curled into the sky, forming a thin ring of light above the lake. A crown, hanging just above the surface, casting no glow. And the boy. He whispered into the mirror, and the lake listened. The ring of light, soft, pale, perfect, hovered just above the lake like a halo with no origin. It neither pulsed nor dimmed. It did not cast shadows. Yet every eye in the village was drawn to it. Some said it was a message. Others, a warning. The elders called it the eye without sleep. Elior believed it was neither. He claimed it was a seal, something final and binding, like wax upon a letter, or a lock upon a grave. Whatever it was, the lake changed beneath it. Beneath the ring, the water churned, not visibly, but in feeling. You could sense it if you got too close. The air grew heavy, not humid, but saturated with unsaid things. Voices stuttered near the shore. Birds veered away mid-flight. Even insects refused the edge. And the swans, now 12, began to swim in a slow, deliberate spiral beneath the crown, always clockwise. Always silent. The spiral grew tighter each day, as if they were winding the lake into a knot. Then came the stone. One dawn, a flat slab of black stone surfaced at the center of the lake. Unmarked, unclaimed, yet recognizable, in the way some dreams feel familiar though you've never lived them. It rested directly beneath the floating ring. On it lay a single object, a reed crown, brittle and woven tight, with strands of white feather trapped in its seams. The mirror child appeared again that evening. This time, he stood. Without words, he pointed at the crown on the stone. Then at the sky. Then at Elior. The message was clear. Someone must take the crown. Someone must become the bridge. Elior shook his head. That is not mine to wear. But the boy only turned and walked away, leaving behind wet footprints that smoked where they touched the dock. By nightfall, the villagers found a second slab of stone, this one near the shore. Upon it, a reflection of the crown, but reversed. Feather tips pointed inward. And around it, the footprints of something large, webbed, and wrong. Something had come from the lake. Something was waiting for an answer. Her name was Leora. She lived at the edge of the forest, where the trees leaned forward like eavesdropping elders, and her windows had always faced away from the lake. She feared reflections. She feared silence more. And yet, when the swans came, she was the first to dream. Not like the others, whose dreams were fragments, water in their mouths, feathers under their tongues, eyes that did not blink. Leora's dream came whole. Each night, the same. In it, she stood on the lake. Not on a boat, not on ice, on the water itself, which held her like a promise. The sky above her churned with clouds in the shape of animals she'd never seen, and below, beneath the mirror surface, swam herself, younger, unbroken, smiling. And always in the center of the lake, the crown. She never reached it in the dream. But on the sixth night, after the second stone slab surfaced and the crown's reflection twisted unnaturally, she awoke with a start and whispered, "It is not a crown. It is a question." By dawn, she was gone. No note. No trail. Only the scent of crushed lilies on her pillow and a single white feather pinned to the inside of her door, not with a tack, but with a thorn. That same morning, the swans stopped moving. 12 still points in the water, frozen mid-spiral, their beaks open slightly, as if gasping. Beneath the floating crown, the water had turned clear, and what lay below it made the villagers weep or flee. Not bones. Not ruins. But a figure, tall, robed in mist, face hidden, hands open and waiting. Some believed it was the spirit of the lake. Others whispered it was the 13th swan, returned in another shape. But Elior knew better. That is not a being, he said. That is a consequence. By twilight, Leora returned. Walking barefoot down the hill, her dress soaked, her eyes steady. She carried nothing. But her shadow wore the crown. Leora stood at the lake's edge as dusk collapsed into full night. She did not speak. She did not kneel. But the water bent toward her. Ripples rolled inward, toward the center, where the black stone slab now pulsed faintly, as though something beneath it had begun to breathe. Behind her, the villagers gathered in silence. Even Elior, lantern unlit. None dared approach, not because of fear, but because they knew, this moment was not for them. The 12 swans rose, not flying, not swimming, simply rising, as if the lake had reversed its gravity. Their wings stretched wide. Their heads tilted backward. And from their open beaks poured a single, unified sound. Not song. Not scream. Name. A name no one could speak. A name the lake had held for centuries. A name that had waited for someone brave enough to wear it. Leora stepped forward. The water received her without resistance. It rippled like silk as she walked atop it, not sinking, not stumbling. Her shadow, still wearing the crown, split from her heels and floated beside her, moving independently now. As they neared the black slab, the crown rose from the shadow's head and hovered. Leora extended her hands. But she did not take it. She spoke instead. A word, just one, in a voice older than hers. In a tongue that made birds fall still, and the trees lean forward to listen. The crown chattered. Feathers burst into the sky like doves made of dust. The mist peeled back from the hills. And for the first time in weeks, the lake reflected the true sky, stars and all. The swans were gone. The boy was gone. Even the black water faded, first to gray, then to blue, like old sorrow diluted with new breath. Leora turned. She was smiling. And on her palm, unburned and whole, lay the name the lake would not drown, etched in light, pulsing gently. No one could read it. But all who saw it felt it. Belonging. That night, the villagers lit fires again. Not out of fear, but warmth. Not to drive back darkness, but to invite one another close. And far above the lake, where the crown once hung, a ring of stars now shone, unmoving, unblinking. A reminder that sometimes, even a reflection must choose when to become real.